Hello and welcome to the Center for Research Libraries Global Resources Network webinar presentation on Middle East and Islamic resources. I see a few people are still clicking in as we go, but it's 2 o'clock Central Time, and so we're going to get started. I wanted to welcome you and thank you for your participation in this event. It's action-packed and full of interesting content. We are going to mute all of the phones on entry. The audio portion is being done over the telephone, and you should see the presentation PowerPoint slides through the WebEx presentation. You'll also note on the bottom right-hand side of your screen the chat bar. And so if you have any questions related to the content or any technical issues, we encourage you to use the chat function during the presentation section. And we'll devote as much time as we can at the end to chat questions and live telephone discussion as well. We'll be giving you the instructions how to unmute your phone at that time. But in the meanwhile, we do encourage you to write your thoughts down, or questions, clarifications, or comments in the chat bar, and we'll respond to them as we can. So we're going to get started, and I just wanted to present the brief agenda here. Here's what we'll be covering over the course of 45 minutes plus discussion. I and Judy Alspa here at the Center for Research Libraries will be presenting a brief overview of CRL's collection strengths related to the Middle East and Islamic resources. We'll be focusing a nice portion of time on Middle East digital resources, particularly open access resources, but also commercial databases that are being increasingly made available. And then we'll devote a section to emerging challenges, including documentation of electronic resources. We have some guest speakers with us today, Roberta Dougherty at the University of Texas and Peter Magierski at New York University, who will be addressing some of those topics. So thanks to both of them for their participation in this as well. And we have registered about 90 people to attend the presentation. So this is quite a large audience of subject librarians, reference librarians, professors and students, catalogers, all sorts who are attending this. So it's a great cross-representation of our membership, and we do encourage you to share information that you have about emerging challenges in terms of what you're collecting or how you're storing the material. What are you seeing in terms of trends of research and the kind of resources people are using? So think about those questions as we get up to the discussion point. And also in that discussion time, we'll allot some time for you to ask questions of our guest presenters as well. To begin, the Center for Research Libraries collection ranges some 5 million volumes of materials held in print, microfilm, and digital resources. Particularly related to Middle East or Islamic resources at the center, we have more than 20,000 titles cataloged in our catalog that relate to particular countries of the Middle East or material about the Middle East resources, Arabic topics, I should say, or religious topics having to do with Islam. That's the chart you see at the bottom of the screen is a rough estimation of the time coverage of our Middle East and Islam publications held by the center. I say rough in the sense that this is a graph that was charted by the dates of publication listed in the catalog record. So it's not entirely accurate to take a look at that and ascertain what we have, given that some of the large microform sets may have a more recent publication date than the actual content of those materials themselves. Also, newspapers, journals, and the like aren't necessarily accurately represented in that. But you can see that the strengths of CRL's collections, particularly for this region, are for the second half of the 20th century forward. You can, pretty much dating from the beginning of the center, we have collected a large body of material related to the Middle East and Islamic topics. That comes in the form of monographs, dissertations, newspapers, archival sets, microform collections, and I'll cover each of those briefly in turn. Here's a summary of some of the strengths of the Middle East and Islamic resources at the center in order of perhaps importance, certainly in areas that we actively collect. As I've mentioned, we collect and are known for our large collection of newspapers, both from the United States and international. We also have a large monographic set of materials related to the Middle East. CRL's dissertation collection in total counts to about 800,000 foreign doctoral dissertations published outside of the United States and Canada. And we actively collect microform sets, that's microfilm, microfiche, etc., from government sources as well as non-government archival sets as well. And I'll cover each of those very briefly in turn. Newspapers. This is one of the perhaps one of the greatest assets of the center in terms of research use here. We get a lot of circulation of our newspaper, which we hold in print, in microfilm, and also in digital forms as well. The collection from the Middle East in particular is strong for, I guess on average, from about 1950 forward, although the date ranges vary depending on country representation, how much material we've acquired in back films from our demand purchase program, or from original microfilming through the center's programs or the related Middle East Microform project, which Judy will cover in a few minutes. But we have newspapers from all countries of the Middle East, and also related to Islamic topics from different portions of the world, including India, Pakistan, Southeast Asia. We have materials from Russia, Sudan, Thailand, Indonesia, and the like. And just here, a couple screenshots show some of the resources that we have, include English language material from various countries of the Middle East, as well as Arabic, French, and other languages, and from Northern Africa as well. You see at the bottom Maghreb al-Aqsa from Tunisia. In addition to the microfilm newspapers, CRL has been engaging in digitization of its historical newspaper content, and I'll be covering that briefly later on. That's called the World Newspaper Archive. Also represented within the collection are CRL's ethnic newspaper collection. In particular, we hold strengths of various newspapers published in the United States from different ethnic communities. We have collections of Arab American newspapers, historical Arab American newspapers that were published more or less on the eastern coast, and in particular New York area, and ongoing work in terms of identifying and microfilming or preserving that material has been going on at different institutions such as the Library of Congress and filmed by MEMP as well. Our monograph collection, as I mentioned, is particularly large, and strong representation comes from countries such as Turkey, Syria, and other countries as well. This is just a representation from one of our early Turkish publications, which is actually Turkish and Arabic script on the subject of geography. This hard copy publication actually had hand-colored maps in there as well, and so this is just one example. We also have large monographic collections that have come in micro formats as well that have been purchased, such as the the Western books, The Middle East from the Rise of Islam, and other microfilm collections such as that. In addition to the monographs we've collected on deposit or from CRL's original acquisitions from the countries of the Middle East, we also have a large body of materials related to Islam in different parts of the world. And here's just a screen grab of a couple of the representative monographs that we've scanned through CRL's digital delivery, which is digitization in response to interlibrary loan. These materials include the Muslim issues in India, in the French colonies, and as well as in America as well. CRL has historic monographs and manuscripts, primarily in microfilm, that have come through various acquisition, preservation programs, and CRL's purchase proposal program. This particular one, I believe, is from the Malian Arabic manuscripts that was preserved by MEMP's sister program, the Cooperative Africana Materials Project, or CAMP. And we also have large collections of these manuscripts that have been acquired from the collections of the British Library, as well as a set that was microfilmed from the School of Oriental and African Studies. So the printed book and manuscript and monograph and manuscript collections are quite wide and varied. They cover from the mid-18th century forward, with some of these notable early examples coming from anywhere from the 12th to the 18th centuries as well. Finally, I just wanted to wrap up the strengths of our collections relating to the archival and microform sets that we've acquired over time through CRL's main collection. These come through the Purchase Proposal Program, and I'll note for those of you who are familiar with that our deadline for nomination is coming up for the Purchase Proposal Program, and we do encourage you to think about collection sets for CRL to acquire through that. We've had some good success in recent years collecting materials on Islam, as well as material from the Arab world. So those microform sets include a wide body of materials that have been published or collected and preserved through government archives, such as the United States National Archives set, the National Archives collections from the UK, from France, from Germany, and the like. And collected sets that are made available through purchase through vendors such as IDC, Chadwick Healy, Gale, and ProQuest, things like The Creation of Modern Iraq, and a forthcoming set that was recently approved, Muslims in Russia from 1881 to 1918. That material will soon be made available. All of these collections are being summarized, and you can find more information about CRL's holdings through the topic guide devoted to Middle Eastern studies on our website. You'll see a screen grab here, but from our main page, if you just click on the Collections tab at the top, you'll see a link to the topic guides, and there you can browse any variety of topics of materials related to CRL. This one in particular, related to the Middle East, is being upgraded and will be recently announced with CRL's Global Resources Forum program, including more material from related resources about digital, Middle Eastern and Islamic topics, and a landscape talking about some of the current challenges of collecting in this area. Judy Alspa will cover a specific portion of our collections that have been collected and preserved by MEMP.
Hello, everyone. The Middle East Microform Project, known as MEMP, has been around for almost 25 years, preserving rare and important resources related to the Middle East. While historically we've used microfilm as a preservation medium, MEMP members are very interested in working on digital projects, and we currently have a couple of them on the table. MEMP members benefit from their ability to impact project selection and to take an active part in the discussion about emerging trends in Middle East scholarship and how to meet those needs. Most of MEMP's current member institutions are in North America, but MEMP welcomes members from other parts of the world. Many of MEMP's resources are newspapers, and I've put up here just a sample to show you the breadth of MEMP's collections. For example, Ittihad Ashab is from Iraq and covers the era right after the revolution, which overthrew the monarchy. A lot of other titles from MEMP's collection, from the newspaper collection, are from Algeria and Turkey. MEMP has devoted a fair amount of resources to preserving newspapers of the Arabic community living outside of the Middle East. So, for example, As-Samir was once the largest circulating Arabic daily publication in the United States. And you'll see Keneshrin, which is a newspaper of the Assyrian community in Europe. The articles are in German, Swedish, Syriac, and Turkish. One of MEMP's recently completed projects is the microfilming of the Library of Congress Arabic pamphlet collection. These materials were collected by Dr. George Attia, who who was the head of the Near East section of the Library of Congress from 1967 to 1996. The collection includes pamphlets, speeches, newsletters, and other ephemera from across the Middle East, mostly published between 1960 and 1995. A lot of the materials are in Arabic, also quite a number in English, French, and other languages. They were grouped into 39 subjects, and those are listed in the CRL catalog with the title Pamphlets About the 39 subject groupings. Most of them are by country, so you would find pamphlets about Lebanon, for example. And then those are further subdivided into topics such as political opposition, social issues, water and power, etc. Other main subjects are topics that cut across the region, such as human rights, communism, and Arab American associations. Some particular strengths in this collection are the Arab-Israeli conflict, Egypt, and Islam. And also of note, we have quite a few materials related to Algeria in the late 1950s and early 60s. There are significant collections of the texts of speeches by such folks as Mubarak, Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, and some of the former leaders of Tunisia. And I'm just showing a screenshot of the Guides to MEMP collections where you can find more information about these collections. You'll see on the left there are links to the holdings list and other information about MEMP, so I hope you'll check that out.
Thanks, Judy. And I just wanted to reiterate that MEMP's collection are held and circulated by CRL, and they are available to all CRL members. Although if your institution has an interest in Middle East studies or even emerging interest in Middle East studies, we do encourage you to participate in MEMP as well. Contact Judy if you have questions about that. We want to move on to the next topic here, focusing on Middle East digital resources. And I'm going to turn this over to Peter Magierski, who's the Middle East Studies Librarian at New York University, who's going to talk about open access Middle East and Islamic resources. Peter, are you there?
Yes. In the interest of time, I just want to tell you what the agenda is. I'm going to talk about the open access concept, about the challenges of discovery of open access resources. There is obviously no time to discuss all open access resources in this short period, so I will only highlight few of the resources in these categories. I will provide a slide with links to research guides at other universities that have extensive web-based open access resources. And I will discuss this in the context of an international collaborative project that was launched last December with my colleague here at NYU Institute for the Study of the Ancient with Chuck Jones. This project has collaborators, and the goal is to address the issue of discovery, collection, and sharing of these resources. And at the end, I will provide information on how to subscribe and participate should you be interested. So basically, open access means, digital, online, free of charge, free of most copyright and licensing restrictions. There is a legal basis for that. Permission for new resources is generally permission of copyright holder. For older resources, the expiration of copyright. Many resources in Middle Eastern studies are being made available, yet access to them can be very problematic. Middle East resources are not alone in this. This is the case of other disciplines. It becomes increasingly important to find a way to integrate this material to library collections. There is dramatic growth of online resources, and the amount of resources will become even larger. And it's in the interest of libraries to help researchers discover and cite this material, if possible, and raise the visibility of these resources, so the researchers can submit their own scholarly work with the open access principle in mind. It is especially challenging in the area of Middle Eastern studies, because we have added complexity of geographical scope and variety of languages and different scripts. As many of these resources are created overseas, there is a need for international collaboration to collect, organize, and distribute information about them, and to collaborate on adopting existing standards. Unfortunately, and this is the last point about sustainability, that many of these worthwhile projects are becoming dormant, inactive, and are no longer updated when funding dries up, and they finally break down or disappear. So let's go to the next slide. So these are the categories. These are the type of materials that I will briefly describe. The next slide, please. So this is a selection of resources on Islam, and I must say that, as is the case with all types of information, users must do their due diligence to evaluate the information for the accuracy, authority, and currency, or even legality in some cases. So here we have several collections related to Islam. Internet Sacred Text Archive is an archive of online books about religion, including Islam, mythology, folklore. Texts are presented in English translations and often in the original language. Tafsir is a free website providing access to a collection of commentary, translation, and recitation and other Islam-related resources. Ahlul Bayt, Digital Islamic Library, is a Shia project which goals is to digitize and present resources related to history, law, society, and personalities, with emphasis on the Ithna Ashari Shia. Sunnah and Hadith, these are searchable compendiums of Sunnah and Hadith from University of Southern California. Tanzil allows search Quran in Arabic, and there is a full version of Quran on the last link. Next one, please. In the reference resources, Encyclopedia Iranica is a monumental work that has been going on in print for a number of years, and it is freely available on the web and freely accessible. I will mention AMIL, Arabic Middle East Electronic Library, several times, because this is a large collection of not only reference material but also electronic journals or digitized journals. And currently they have several reference texts. Digital Dictionaries of South Asia is another interesting collection that includes a number of dictionaries in the Middle East languages. We have collected in our project a number of dictionaries, and the link is available from this slide. Next slide, please. For ebooks, Biblioteca Alexandrina is probably the largest repository of electronic books. They have over 170,000 books on this DAR website. Books that are out of copyright are freely available. Books that are in copyright can only be browsed. 5% of the book can be viewed. There are Al-Waraq is a Arabic website entirely in Arabic. It's an online full-text archive of Arabic texts with Quran, Hadith, Sufi text, Islamic history, and literature. You will find that it is necessary to register, but access is free. Another interesting collection of is a kitab, Ottoman and Turkish books, and worth mentioning is Menadoc, collection from Germany that provides access to academic literature from the University of in Halle in Germany, which is famous for the collection in these fields. Of course, Google Books and HathiTrust, Internet Archives. These are the usual suspects that have multiple copies of free ebooks related to East and Islamic studies. HathiTrust alone has over 5,000 books in Arabic, over 3,200 books in Ottoman Turkish, 2,100 books in Persian. So this is worth, these collections are worth checking. These are all full text, so-called full view records in HathiTrust. So is Internet Archive and Internet Archive community texts, which allow users to upload their own texts into the Internet Archive. Gallica, French National Library, has over 2 million pages and 10 million images on their website, and includes back files of serials and newspapers. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the digital asset repository from BibAlex, and on the left on the facet list you have a number of titles in each category. Next, please. And this is a screen grab from the Menadoc at Halle in Germany. Next, please. So the open access journals of freely available journals. We have identified in our project over 372 journals as of yesterday. This is just one giant list, and includes some historical newspapers as well. Here is Halle back again. This newspaper has been digitized, has been made available. The entire run of the newspaper, not entire, until I think 90s, but it's available on freely online. Next, please. I have mentioned Amir, which is a web-based portal and collection of information for the study of the Middle East, which has so far digitized over 250,000 pages in full text, and some of it searchable and indexed on the website. Currently, they have available journals, academic journals from Tunisia to Saudi Arabia. Not all of them are available. Those that have the letter white, they don't have permissions to open access.
Next slide.
and these are a few examples. There are 31 of them, and I invite you to browse through that collection and see what is available. Next slide. So this is an example of the World Digital Library that has a substantial collection. It's a collaboration with Library of Congress and UNESCO, and has a number of manuscripts, maps, images from the area. Next slide. This is a list of archives that are of interest. We can probably go to the next slide because I want to show some of the examples from those historical collections. Next slide. And next slide. And next slide. Here we come to the recommended links that you may be willing to browse through, which include a fuller list of online resources. And next slide. So the last slide is about the Amir collection, which started last year. We have over 500 subscribers, and we have 3 lists that are currently being continually updated: open access journals, open access manuscripts collection, and scholarly blogs. And we invite your participation and sharing information about the collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That was a whirlwind tour, and I do want to reassure people that the slides will be available after the fact with the links enabled on that, so you can click through those, and so we'll make those available on the event page as well. It's quite a comprehensive view of it, and hopefully we can learn more about that under the question and answer section as well. There were a couple questions coming through that we will make sure we will address as we go along. Just to mention that there are, of course, beside the open access resources, a number of commercial resources being made available, including the reference resources and indexes such as those that are fairly well known. Index Islamicus perhaps is not commercial. I think I made a mistake in putting that on there, but certainly the Oxford Index of Islam is a fairly substantial database, and news resources that people are making available, such as Middle East Newsstand from ProQuest and the Ask Zad's Pan-Arab News Index. I do want to mention very quickly that in relation to CRL's Global Resources Forum, which we've talked about at length before, but if you've not been at any of our previous presentations, is a platform to gather together information about electronic resources being offered to CRL member institutions through commercial vendors and the like. And we do reviews of electronic resources that are coming out on the market. This is a snapshot of the Ask Zad review that we put up not too long ago. A nice comprehensive overview that was presented information about the variety of packages through Ask Zad. For purposes of time, I won't go into this, but I do encourage you to take a look on the Forum tab at the top of our page and to provide feedback as well about particular resources that have been reviewed or resources that you would like to see reviewed. This is done often in connection with active licensing offers, and there are a number of offers that are being made available on the market right now or are soon upcoming. Digitized primary resources such as the confidential print series that Adam Matthew Digital is working on, or the upcoming Gale World Scholar module for the Middle East and North Africa, which is, I think, still in the preliminary phase, but they're selecting materials from various UK archives as part of their primary source documentation, which is accompanied also by reference guides into those collections. So we can talk a little bit more about that as we have time. I'm going to skip forward a few slides here, and maybe we'll cover the World Newspaper Archive at the end if we have time. And we're going to jump right into the Emerging Challenges section, and I'd like to introduce Roberta Dougherty, who's the Middle East Studies Librarian at the University of Texas at Austin, who will be presenting on a particular topic of interest to a number of scholars and librarians about documenting revolution in the Middle East. Roberta, are you there?
Hi, thank you very much, James. My name is Robin Dougherty, and I'm going to be talking to you all today about documenting revolution in the Middle East. Could I have my first slide, please? So what does it mean to document a revolution? The massive popular uprisings in Arab countries that began in December 2010 created just a mountain of artifacts of different kinds, printed documents of various kinds used by the protesters to organize their efforts. They used them to codify their ideals, their demands, and their goals. There were also photographs and video recordings of protesters in the street, of news broadcasts, of televised speeches by beleaguered leaders. There were posters and signs that were carried by the protesters and used to motivate their efforts, the efforts of both revolutionaries and counter-revolutionaries. There were also just plethora of creative responses to what was happening at the same time in the form of artwork, music, multimedia performances, etc. And along with all of that, of course, there were websites and social media tools that were being created and being used to help organize the protests, to motivate the protesters, and to document what was going on. So you can already tell that documentation of what has come to be called the Arab Spring involves collecting in a number of formats. Some of them are born digital, some of them are analog, and all are almost entirely ephemeral, fleeting, and endangered. I'm going to introduce you very quickly to some of the more important projects that attempt to document the revolutionary movements that began in December 2010. But after that, because of time constraints, I'm going to focus on the uprising that perhaps most caught the imagination and attention of the world this year, which was that of Egypt. Although there were uprisings and demonstrations in many cities in that country, again, for reasons of time, I'm going to focus on those projects that document what was going on in Cairo's now famous Tahrir Square. Now, before I plunge into some examples of projects that are trying to document what's going on, I just want to talk to you about the image on the slide itself, which is itself a document. It captures several of the elements I've listed. It documents the protesters' creative response to the uprising they're dressed in national colors. They're wearing red, black, and white. It documents artifacts, including the little headbands that you see them wearing that they obviously made at home to sort of create a sense of unity among themselves. I think they're very cute. The signs that they are holding are also artifacts, and the slogans that the signs have are among the most famous of the products of the Egyptian Revolution, showing the wit and humor and the flexibility of the Egyptian language in expressing the protesters' goals. The one says, enter in peace. The one in the middle says, long live Egypt. And then, of course, you can read the one that says, support freedom. And then the photograph itself, this document I'm talking about, documenting their participation, their creativity, was published in a woman's weekly magazine, which is, again, another artifact. This magazine would have been circulated quite widely, both within Egypt and to other Arabic-speaking countries, carrying Egypt's message of peaceful revolution to a very wide audience indeed. Now, I'm going to go on. I'm going to highlight some of the important projects that attempted to document events in the Middle East overall. And I'd like to point out that the challenges that Peter Magierski listed with regard to documenting all of this stuff, all of these things apply to these various projects. And it's my opinion that sustainability of the documentation effort may actually be the greatest challenge of them all. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, this is a very ambitious project. It's called Archival. It's a data mining project, and it's actually it's a little difficult to understand. You do sort of need to explore it, and links to everything I'm talking about will be available at the end of my presentation. What this project is attempting to do is to mine websites and Twitter posts and use them to analyze opinion that is going on in the Arab world about late-breaking issues. When I say that they are using data mining of Twitter, what they have done is they have set up a pre-selected list of hashtags. So it's not a tool that you can use to go into Twitter and look for any hashtag that interests you. They have a preset list that you can use in the Twitter Miner tool that is featured in that red bar, sort of near the top. The green and red graphic that is prominent on the screen is not something that you can create from this website. They are a group of researchers that are creating various kinds of visual analysis of the blogosphere of the Arabic-speaking world, and they publish on this website the results of their analysis. So what you're seeing there, that prominent red and green graphic, is what they're calling language sentiment analysis of the various presidential candidates for, hopefully, for the new president of Egypt and the elections to come up this fall. And the green represents positive statements that they've collected, and the red represents negative statements. And it shows how reluctant Egyptians really are to say anything bad about anybody. The largest circle is for Mohammed al-Baradei, and he was widely touted as the next successor to Mubarak, but of course we have to wait and see. I'd like the next slide, please, so I can keep moving. I tried using the Twitter Miner tool myself. As I said, the hashtags are already predetermined, and it's very small, but you can see the little search box says #Jan25, which was a common hashtag that was used on Twitter during from the beginning of the Egyptian uprising. But it wasn't the only significant hashtag that appeared on Twitter during these events. And you can see I'm able to specify what language I want my results in and a time period. I went back to the earliest date they have available in their database, which was the first day of the uprising, the 25th of January of this year. And for some reason, it can only let you look at no more than 14 days' worth of data at a time. And I found it interesting in this little result how quickly the hashtags, the results become blank after the 28th. Now, many of you remember that there was an internet blockout in Egypt between the 27th of January and the 2nd of February. That doesn't entirely explain why there are no results after the 2nd of February. So there's some anomalies in the database that I can't explain. But it's worth going in and playing around with it just to see what it can do. I'd like the next slide, please. This was a fabulous tool that I found on the website of The Guardian. The link is being provided for you in the chat box in the lower right, as you can see. And it's really worth looking at yourself. I could not capture its amazing behavior on this in this screenshot. When you first go to the site, it's sort of like you're riding a roller coaster through time. I mean, literally, that's the visual image. Along the bottom, you'll see the countries of the Middle East, and then, of course, on the right-hand axis are dates going forward in time from the bottom at the front. And each of the little icons indicates some incident that occurred in that particular country on that particular date, and the color of the icon tells you what kind of event it's documenting, and the icon is a live link that takes you to whatever story was published in The Guardian on that particular incident, on that particular date. So it's a really neat way to interact with that one newspaper's archive of articles published on the Arab Spring. It begins on the 19th of December with the story of the immolation of the young man in Tunisia that sort of is often pointed to as one of the many catalysts for what happened in the Arab Spring. And it's current. When I made this slide, it had incidents for, let me see, I guess it was the 16th of August when I last looked at this, and it had icons for events in Libya up to that date. So they are maintaining this. And of all places, The Guardian probably has the manpower and the funds to maintain this particular resource. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay, as many of you know already, that the Library of Congress has established several different projects to archive the web in partnership with the Internet Archive using the Archive.it tool. And Archive.it is a subscription service of the Internet Archive. They collaborate with the Internet Archive and other research and memory institutions around the world to produce various collections of archived web resources. And what I'm showing you here is a screenshot from their archive for North Africa and the Middle East. This particular project was in collaboration with Archival and the National Library of France. This particular collection began crawling the web in February of this year, but the collection includes some documents that are a couple years older than that. Like I found some blog posts from 2005 in this particular collection. The Library of Congress also did a separate project in partnership, again, with Internet Archive and the National Library of France, devoted to archiving web content related specifically to the revolution in Tunisia. So Tunisia has a collection all to itself. Okay, next slide, please. Now I'm going to start to focus on various documentation efforts that are particularly for Egypt and particularly for Tahrir Square. Many of you know, and I can see your names and I recognize you, and it's nice to see all my friends out there. You either have visited or you've studied at the American University in Cairo, which had the unusual good fortune of being located pretty much smack dab right in the middle of the demonstrations that were taking place in Cairo. They're still taking place in Cairo. And so it was in a unique position to take advantage of revolution as a resource for pedagogy. And many of its classes were actually reconfigured and renamed and retooled so that they could make use of this living history that was happening around them to engage the students and to teach them about research and to teach them about translation and to teach them about political science and all of the various things that they would teach normally over at the American University in Cairo. This is a blog post from my friend M. Links Quayle, who is noting the launch of a brand new course at the American University in Cairo. The course was originally going to be titled Translation, Children's Literature, and Cultural Representations. But the professor, Dr. Samia Mahrez, decided that she was going to take advantage of what was happening right outside their front door, and she changed the course title to Translating Revolution. Among the other courses that were launched at AUC that took advantage of this, there was a course called Isqat al-Nizam, which means bringing down the system, Egypt's January 25 uprising and comparative historical perspective. There was a course about Cairo, Cairo in the revolution, and then 24 other courses were adjusted to include discussion and analysis of the events and changes that were happening in Egypt. Let's see, I believe I'm ready for the next slide. This particular course that Samia Mahrez taught, The Translating Revolution, one of its products was a blog, which is called Unsettling the Dust. And what you're seeing here is a screenshot of the very first blog post. If you went to the archives, which you can see on the right, the blog was active from about the 22nd of February until about the 15th of May. So it came to an end when the course came to an end. But its blog posts document the activity of this class in dealing with the posters and slogans that I've mentioned, and dealing with the chants that people chanted, the songs that people sung, the performances that they were actually having in the middle of Tahrir Square during the demonstrations. And so the blog is sort of the document both of the course and of these activities of the protesters. And I think it's really fascinating and worth exploring. Could I have the next slide, please? At the same time, there were many similar kinds of activities going on at different levels. Now, this is the page from the American University in Cairo documenting their project called University on the Square. Again, this was an attempt. The university realized it was in a unique position to actually participate in documenting these events, since they were happening basically outside the doorsteps of the downtown campus of the university. So this project was announced in a press release on the 10th of March, so after Mubarak had already stepped down. And this is something else I wanted to point out, that many of these efforts to document didn't really gain steam until after the main event had occurred, well after, in some cases, after Mubarak had stepped down. I think all of us who are interested in the Middle East and who were following these events with great interest we were blogging about it, we were tweeting about it. If we do Facebook, we were posting on Facebook about it, and I think everybody sort of gradually realized, how am I going to keep all of this stuff for myself that I've shared with other people using social media? What about all these photographs that are appearing on, Flickr pages and all this video that's being uploaded to YouTube? How are we going to collect and deal with all of this stuff? And I think it took everybody a little while to realize what a big undertaking it was going to be. The American University in Cairo got funding from the Andrew Mellon Foundation for this project, and one of its interesting ideas was, you may have heard of a project called StoryCorps, which is people telling their stories on National Public Radio. They bring a trailer around and they invite people to come in and tell their life stories. And AUC set up a booth to collect and record oral histories of people's memories of what they were doing during the demonstrations, what they saw, what they were doing, who they were with, all of these sorts of things. If you go to the next slide, the stuff that they have collected, much of it is available on the AUC page of Archive It, and there are other parts of the collection that are accessible through the AUC website. Unfortunately, this is a project that it seems like it may possibly have died under its own weight. It's not being kept up very consistently. But perhaps when the semester begins again, they'll get a new injection of energy to keep going. Let me see. I'd like the next slide, please. This is a really interesting project. The AUC, University on the Square, in addition to doing harvesting of websites and Twitter feeds, it did also try to collect realia and photographs and artwork. This particular project, Tahrir Documents, its principal goal was to deal with the paper ephemera of the revolution. And the nice thing about this site is that it not only presents downloadable PDFs of all of the documents, but it also presents translations where the documents are only in Arabic, which is really valuable for people who are interested in these events but cannot approach the original language materials. This blog, or I call it a blog, I guess that's its format. It began in March of 2011. So again, these people were thinking, we have all of this stuff. How are we going to manage it and present it so that people can use it? And like many of these projects, it also has a Facebook page, so you can sort of keep up with current developments, and it also has a Twitter feed. I'm going to race on to my next slide, please. This is yet another fascinating project. It's called 25 Leaks, obviously inspired by the famous WikiLeaks. This site consists entirely of documents that removed from the files of the infamous state security headquarters in downtown Cairo. Some of you may have seen on TV the scenes. They were incredible, of the protesters going into the state security headquarters and literally rifling through file cabinets by hand. It looked like, for those of us old enough to remember, the people of West Germany and East Germany going through the Stasi files in Berlin, and papers just kind of being thrown around and all over the floor and flying through the air and out the windows. And somebody thought, let's collect this stuff, provide scans of it, and what you see are little summaries of the information that is in each document, but you can also pull up a nicely readable image of each document, and you see some of them are damaged by fire, which I thought was sort of interesting. It's not a very big site. It only contains about 107 documents of varying lengths, and I do not know if they are still adding documents to this site or not. May I have the next slide, please? Now, this is a gentleman that many of us know personally, Dr. Khalid Fahmy, who is professor of history at the American University in Cairo. He went down to the barricades in Tahrir Square on the 29th of January, and this is a picture of him holding his poster, a caricature of Mubarak, and the word says "Irhal," which means get out, basically, go away. He was approached by the head of the Egyptian National Library and Archives around the 20th of February. So again, well after Mubarak had already stepped down. And Dr. Fahmy and other academics in Egypt were approached by the head of the National Archives to form a committee in order to document the 25th of January revolution, and that is what they're called. They're called the committee, let's see, I've written it down and I've lost it already. The Committee to Document the 25 January Revolution is what it's called. Now, Dr. Fahmy had some interesting things to say about this project. He, first off, he's noted that he says we're not the only ones that are trying to do this. There were also efforts going on by the Bibliotheca Alexandrina. He recognized the American University in Cairo project that I already described, and other independent bodies that were undertaking similar tasks. But he felt that this particular project with the National Archives would be differentiated in two major ways. One was they were going to focus on quality, and secondly, they were going to focus on the end-user experience. And he had also a very interesting comment to make about the nature of documenting revolution. He recognized that this is inherently political, and he also describes in his interviews the failure of documentation of Egypt's 1952 revolution, where there arose an official narrative of the 52 revolution, and there is no way to go back and amend this narration of that particular significant event in Egypt's history. He said, this is our chance to collect the material and present it in a way for other people to interpret. We are not going to write the official history of this revolution. And he said, when they started out documenting the revolution, I'm quoting from Dr. Fahmy, documenting the revolution sounded like an easy thing, but what is the revolution? When did it start? When did it end? What constitutes participation in the revolution? Is it only those who went down to Tahrir? What about the police officers who fought the protesters? Are they a part of the revolution or not? Very interesting question. Next slide, please.
Robin, I'm afraid I'm going to have to cut you off.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I should mention to everyone that Robin is preparing this as part of a larger presentation this December, I think, at the Middle East Studies Association or the Middle East Librarians Association. And we can make the slides available, but we are unfortunately quite out of time at this point.
Okay.
But thank you. That was extremely interesting. And we can maybe perhaps append some notes to the links that you will provide afterwards on our website for that.
Okay.
I'm going to, with your permission, those who are interested in extending the discussion might stay on after the hour. Certainly, I did want to just point out that part of Robin's presentation about archiving the web, it's part of a larger context of preservation that is going on. She mentioned the Library of Congress and Archive It. The Library of Congress has additional archives that it's self-curated, some of which are quite interesting work. Archive It as a service to institutions. I'll just state for the purposes here that not all archives are created equal, although some of the material on Archive It includes some bold proposed topics. Some of the material in there is quite small, and it's rife with a lot of errors that pop up in terms of materials that were not in fact archived through there. I just put a screen grab of a few things where parts of sites that were dynamically generated were not captured as part of the archiving. Videos in particular, those that were trying to grab YouTube videos of these failed to be captured. And in some cases, the seed URLs that people provided it looked like they were capturing a lot of material, but in fact, the only things that were changing on the page were ads and things like that. So, archiver beware, I suppose. But I'm going to have to wrap up the formal presentation and move on to the discussion for those who are able to stay on. Certainly, we would love to continue the conversation as they can, but we'd understand if you have to leave us. I just left here with some of kind of my sense of maybe where the emerging challenges are collectively for our institutions in terms of new areas of research that our scholars and faculty are participating in. How are we responding to those? What kind of documentation are we collecting for the kinds of research that's being undertaken now? How are we supporting their work? New strategies to collect the videos that are being presented online, as Robin mentioned, the graffiti, the ephemera, the posters, the songs that are being produced right now, as well as the material that's increasingly being generated only in electronic form via the web, from government publications to jihadist discussion boards. How are we collecting and making sure that material will be made available further down the line? I'm going to open up the opportunity for people to ask some questions. And our speakers, I think, have unmuted themselves as well if there are particular questions that people want to have with them via their phones. You can press *6 on your telephone keypad to unmute your own phones if you wanted to ask a question. Just speak up if you have one, and we'll take on your questions. I did have a couple questions in advance just to that were sent via chat that I'd like to put out there. And one in particular, I think, was addressed during Peter's presentation about the open access materials being digitized. And one of our attendees asked if all of those collections are being entered into OCLC or catalog records. Peter, do you have any knowledge about that?
WorldCat is very difficult to discover full-text electronic access because Google Books and HathiTrust, even though they load those records, it's not immediately visible whether this is a full text. The answer is no, not all of them, especially those that are produced outside produced by people who do not contribute records to OCLC, overseas collections.
Are there other questions? I heard somebody's phone was unmuted. Is there another question online? We had a general question come up during the presentation asking about any recommendations for either collections, I'm not sure if this is in print or online, that document fatwas from various imams. Peter or Robin, do you have any recommendations at this point for that kind of collection?
Not immediately.
There's something that I have found, but it's all in Arabic. So it's like one particular imam. You submit your question, and he responds.
There was a question that was submitted in advance of the discussion in the registration form that one of our attendees was particularly interested in Islamic law and Middle East legal resources. And certainly that is a strong collection focus in print historically for those with Middle East collection focus. And I know that there are emerging digital resources that are being made available as well. One of the long-standing programs is the Avalon Law Project at Yale University. I also came across, I think it's an Egyptian site. Another one was that I came across recently was the Lebanese Immigration Research Center that was putting up documentation about laws on migration and citizenship and the like. There are a host of other ones that maybe people can help us address either now or after the fact. CRL is also working collaboratively right now with the Law Library Microform Consortium to digitize historic legal resources, either from our collections or from our member library institutions. And interest in Islamic law and Middle East legal resources has come up from time to time. They are working on some historical collections, in particular from colonial periods, going back and digitizing some of the legal periodical or the journals that were court opinions or court reports. And I'd like to put out there for your consideration, if there's interest in a concerted effort in that, that you can contact me about particular resources that you think would be valuable to make available, and where those sources might be found as well. I have one final question that's come through here that related to materials, what the respondent characterized as relics of old research techniques, the materials that were collected in the course of research, such as photocopies, materials that scholars have been collecting, and what could we possibly do with those kinds of materials? Often they're sitting on shelves in somebody's office rather than being made available as part of a broader collection. That certainly is not unique, I think, to the particular region, the topic of interest today. I think every librarian has those kind of collections, and It is an ongoing challenge. I'm not sure I have the time or the vision to answer everyone's problems on that. But if anybody has a particular case where they were able to process that material as part of a collection, or even make that available for digitization, we'd like to hear more about that.
James, I think a lot of institutions have faculty digital archives where they have staff that will help individual faculty member convert these analog documents, slides, maps, what have you, into a repository, institutional repository, and make it available to the larger world.
Yeah, that's right. That's very interesting. We're going to, I think, call it a day here, and we'd like to thank you for your forbearance in sitting with us here, and to invite you to fill out a follow-up survey to let us know what you thought of our presentation and discussion. The link will be made available to you via email, but it's also up here on the screen. And we'd like to also invite you to participate in our upcoming webinars as well, or to recommend them to your colleagues. We have the next two listed on the screen. The one in October is a general orientation to CRL collections and services. That's great as a refresher course for CRL's programs, as well as for new employees at your institutions or new members of the center as well. So we commend that to you. And those are normally held on Wednesdays. So we will be posting the recording of this presentation on the event page that you originally signed up to register on this, and on CRL's YouTube channel. We do encourage you to explore CRL's resources more on our website, and to sign up for our email newsletter, CRL Connect, which we use to publicize these events and other activities of the center as well. So thank you so much for your attendance today, and we look forward to seeing you at a future webinar. Good day.